everyone, it's Aji and today I will be talking about the classics community. So I found out about this a couple of days ago. There's this YouTuber by the name of Lucy the Reader and she created the classics community. I'll leave a link to her video in the description box below. But basically it's just a community in which people read classics, talk about classics, and I thought that was just so cool, so I am joining. I do have to say I'm a bit late with this because they are actually holding a readathon now for 2 weeks and it ends in a couple of days, but you know what? I'll be ready for the next one. I am so excited. Anyway, there is a year-long challenge and basically the rule is just like you should read 12 classics in a year, which is rather doable because it's just one book a month. And so I picked out 12 classics that I owned and really want to read this year. So that's what this video is about. Also, at first I was a bit worried because I thought, okay, 12 classics, I don't think I own that many classics. But last week I reorganized all of my books and just selected all the classics, and oh my gosh, I have so many which I haven't read. So we are good for the entire year. The first one is Hamlet. I actually have never read anything written by Shakespeare, also because during secondary school we only read 2 classics, Jekyll and Hyde and The Importance of Being Earnest. So Hamlet is about this guy named Hamlet. Oh, this is going to be such a bad explanation. So this dude, his name is Hamlet and his father gets killed by his brother named Claudius, and so he is, what is he doing? He's going to try and avenge the murder. So yes, he tries to avenge the death of his father, and as he tries to find out the truth about the situation, his relationship with his mother comes to the forefront, and apparently it's really troubled. And that's all I know about it. Then another one is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I don't know too much about this. I did, however, watch the animated movie during history class years and years ago, and the thing that I remember the most is just being thoroughly confused. But yeah, I do believe this is about communism and capitalism, and the story is told through like an animal farm. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I think I'm just going to look really silly after having read all of these books. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see in the future. Then I also want to read Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, and this is about 2 men, George and Lenny, and they are searching for work in California. And so Lenny finds a job at a ranch, but he gets into trouble with the boss's daughter-in-law, and apparently it's so bad that George can't even help him. My friend Abby read Steinbeck's East of Eden and absolutely loved it. I believe it even was in her top 10 of 2019 reads. So yeah, I'm excited to read Steinbeck as well. I also want to read The Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham. I actually started reading this about 2 years ago, and I think I stopped around 50 pages, not for any particular reason. This book is about a small English village called Midwich, and one day this weird silver object appears and all the inhabitants just fall unconscious. The next day everyone just wakes up unharmed. The only thing is that all of the women have become pregnant. When these children are born, however, it is very clear to see that they are not normal. They all have blonde hair and golden eyes, and they grow up way too fast. One of the reasons I really want to give this book another go is that last year I read my all-time favourite book, Middle Game by Sean Maguire, and that book was partially inspired by this one. The children in Middle Game are referred to as cuckoos. So yeah. Then another book that inspired the story of Middle Game, Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley. I think most of you will know the gist of this story. Basically, Victor Frankenstein gets rescued at the North Pole, and then he tells the story of why he's there. Basically, that he created this monster and something went terribly wrong. As someone who loves science fiction and horror, I think this is a perfect classic for me. Then the next book is The Adventure of the Engineer's Thumb and Other Cases by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a Sherlock Holmes book with several cases in them. The titular one is about an engineer who goes on a secret mission and he survives, but without his thumb. Then I also want to read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I have never read anything written by her, but I have time and time again heard the names Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. So yeah, I just really want to understand all the memes from SparkNotes, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, cue the memes. The next book I tried to read in anticipation of Wilder Girls by Rory Power, but I failed miserably. It's Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This book is about a group of schoolboys who end up stranded on this weird island during an unknown war, and so they are there all by themselves, and then chaos erupts basically. Now, I really had a tough time reading this. It was really slow, it was a bit hard to grasp basically, so I think I got up to 45 pages, something like that, and so I posted about it on Instagram and I asked the opinions of the people there, and a lot of people said that they either hated it or they loved it, but that they did recognize the importance of this book. So I was convinced enough to give it another shot. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to finish it this time. The next one was gifted to me by Oxford University Press, and that is Snow White and Other Tales by the Brothers Grimm. Now, what to say about this book? It is filled to the brim with fairy tales which the brothers collected for a very long time throughout Germany. So yeah, they are German and more gruesome than the Disney adaptations. I also want to read Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. I'm actually trying to read this during the Blacklit Challenge next month, which I'm really excited for. Anyway, this book is the first one in Achebe's trilogy called the African Trilogy. This book starts right before colonialism, and it focuses on this African man named Okonkwo, who is like the strongest and biggest fighter of his town. Now, Okonkwo does a lot of problematic things and eventually he gets exiled. But when he comes back, he notices that missionaries are now in his village and are trying to convert his people to Christianity, and basically they're just colonizing everyone. And so you get to see this sort of tug of war between pre-colonial life in Africa and post-colonial life. This book is an incredibly important piece of African literature, and so I know this book will be such a huge source of interesting conversation. Then I also took the liberty of selecting one Dutch classic, and this one is De Donkere Kamer van Damocles, which translates to The Dark Room of Damocles. This book was written by Willem Frederik Hermans, and here's some Dutch literary history. So here in the Netherlands we have De Grote Drie, which translates to the Big Three, which refers to the three biggest post-World War II writers. So those three were Harry Mulisch, Gerard Reven and Willem Frederik Hermans. Willem Frederik Hermans is actually my favorite Dutch author. I read his book Nooit meer slapen, Never to Sleep Again, when I was about 13 or 14, and it had such a huge impact on me. I previously didn't value Dutch literature as much as I did English literature at that time. and reading that just completely changed my view of it. This book is set during the German occupation, and it follows this man named Henry who owns a cigarette shop in Voorschoten, and all of a sudden, without any time to think, he has this choice between basically life and death. And so this book approaches all of the events around Henry from different perspectives, and so you don't really know what's true and what isn't. I know this sounds incredibly vague, but that was literally what the inside says, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. The next book I have actually started reading, and that is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. This is a Japanese classic, I think written in 1948. This book is heavily inspired by Dazai's own life, and it is about a man who is struggling to understand human beings, and so he recounts his life and the struggles that he has been through, the alienation that he has felt. There is a lot of heavy stuff in here, so I will note the trigger warnings once I finish reading this. I myself am really interested in Japanese literature, which is why I bought it in the first place last year, but what really got me to pick it up now is that this one came out a couple of days ago. This is the manga adaptation made by Junji Ito, who is by far the most successful horror manga artist and writer. Also, I know I said I was doing a no-buy year. I actually didn't buy this. My dad got it for me for Christmas, pre-ordered it, and it came in a couple of days ago. So those were the 12 classics that I'm planning on reading this year. Let me know if you are joining this challenge. I'd love to hear which books you're reading. Either way, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.